Hello, world. Good afternoon. Happy September. What is going on, sis?
What's going on? Happy September. It's just me and you today, huh?
It is.
We can do this, can't we?
We can, and you better not mess this up for nobody.
Okay. I will do my best. So, welcome everyone. We are so glad that you are able to join us today. We know we just have a couple of people on here. So, if you could like and share this stream. Hi, I am one of the co-hosts of By Any Means, Bam, Sharita Walden. And I am with my co-host.
Henry Lucas. Hey now.
So look, you guys, our team is traveling today, and so we are operating everything on our own because we can do that. We are experts. Well, probably not in this though, but we're licensed individuals, so we should be able to figure this out, right? Right, Henry?
Yeah, I mean, they make it look easy. I mean, month after month, they just keep pumping out wonderful content and, high quality podcasts. So, what I think is going to happen for me is really after today's episode, I think I'm going to have a deeper appreciation and gratitude, more than I have now, for our wonderful team that's worked behind the scenes relentlessly, to really make sure that we're carrying the message.
Yes, absolutely. So, you know, charge it to the head and not the heart. If we forget anything, I feel what Henry's saying. They do a good job at making everything smooth for us, and want to give props to the lead podcast person, Ryan, for setting up everything and giving me little bullets to try to figure this thing out. So um, we hope you enjoy our conversation today as we try to operate and do everything else. Just to share a couple of updates. The biggest update is Henry and I will. I don't think I could put up the screen. You guys will put it on our Facebook and Instagram page. But next week, right, Henry? Next week already.
Yeah, next Thursday and Friday.
Yes, Thursday and Friday, Henry and I will be participating in the CAP 6th annual conference that's coming up. And CAP, I think it's Kentucky Addictions, the acronym.
Association of Professionals or something. KAAP. Yeah.
Yes, KAAP conference. We are excited about this opportunity and look forward to meeting the folks who signed up for our session. We'll be really diving deep for a couple of hours with folks about harm reduction, right? And meeting people where they're at as a clinical practice and how to really do that. We got some cool ideas and cool ways of engaging our session. So, folks who are watching this podcast, if you have not signed up, you got time to sign up for our session. And then the day of, make sure that you look us up and see where we're at in the conference space so you can join us. All right. We'll have other updates and news and events that are coming up and places that will be. Please follow all of our social media platforms. We got a lot of events, fall events coming up that we'll be hosting. We'll be, no, not hosting, but we'll have a table at. So we look forward to seeing people that follow us, that support us, that access the resources that we provide in the community. So we'll be putting that on our social media platforms. And I think that's it. If you want some training, please hit us up, right? If you want to do a kit making party with your organization, go into our Facebook page. You can go and DM us, but you can also go on our website and fill out a form so that we can get you scheduled and get that going. And those are free services. So look forward to seeing some of you guys reach out to us. All right. We ready to kickstart this conversation?
Yeah, I think so. Before we do that, how you been?
I've been really focused. And I've been doing this whole declutter thing.
Oh yeah,
Yes, at home. Uh, it started off with a pole in my closet that fell, and there was a lot of clothes on it. So I had a friend come over, and they were helping me go through it. And I discovered how difficult it was for me to let go of items. I mean, things that, and then I had to listen to myself. I was like, no, don't throw that in that giveaway bag. I want to love it again. And I had to listen to myself. I want to love it again. Is there a point that I'm going to love that again? Like, I'm holding on to items that I haven't worn, that I haven't seen, that I forgot about. And it was so eye opening for me and allowed me to start having like a doing processes like in my therapy sessions. And I'm very pleased with that, to the point where I've been decluttering each room of my house, and it feels so good,
yeah,
like a weight. I was like, wow, now I'm eager to go through things. But this has been a big process because I want to change my garage into a Zen space. And what I discovered is, just like when we're trying to improve our health, we can't just go on the outside and be like, oh, I don't like what, my skin looks like this, or my weight, or all these other issues going on the outside. We have to start in the inside. So
mhm,
I'm trying to get a Zen space in my garage because I was avoiding the mess and the chaos and all the overwhelming things that were happening in my house. And I'm like, of course, I'm never going to get out there because I have to start in the inside.
yes,
Ah,
that's powerful.
it is. It
You
has been
know, our external world is really a reflection of our internal world.
right.
So it's not common that somebody um, makes changes on the outside of their life, and then they make changes on the inside, or they make changes on the inside, and they begin to make changes, on the outside.
Hmm.
And I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of people in a therapeutic setting with a lot of different, backgrounds and disorders. And one thing that I find to be fascinating is folks that I've worked with that are hoarders, and they
Mm,
have clutter, and they have items, and they have memorabilia, and they have all of these things that have some level of meaning or importance. And through working with folks, this isn't everybody that would be considered a hoarder,
hmm.
um, but emotionally, they're not letting go. There's usually a grieving process that needs to happen. And it's fascinating. Once they start to grieve and they start to let go, they will almost automatically, without even really focusing on it, start rearranging their external environment.
Mm,
And I think that's just human nature. And this is a great time, too. I mean, we're slowly entering into the time of the year where it's all about letting go, it's all about making space.
mm,
It's all about creating room for what we really want to take its place. And so, if that's doing a fall clean of your house or your car or your office, cleaning out paperwork, if it's emotionally learning how to let go of certain things, relationships, loss, grief, bitterness, resentment, now's the time to really be able to do that, because so much of our um, um, the environment, that we live in, with it being fall, with it being autumn, is really all about letting go.
It is. It is. And I think that's a perfect opening for us to begin a conversation around recovery month. Recovery month. That's what, folks, this is the month where we highlight recovery. Can you tell us a little bit about the recovery month idea, Henry, from your lens?
Yeah, well, happy National Recovery Month. Um, I think it's great that we have a month designated for a specific population,
Mm-hmm.
like other months throughout the year, but we're also not limited to just celebrating things like Black History or
Mm-hmm.
recovery during those specific months. And really, I think the challenge for all of us is to celebrate those things as many days and as many months out of the year that we can possibly do that. So I really see, though, when we designate like a month for a cause, um, it's really like a reminder,
Yeah.
and like so many of us are in recovery, and so many of us are in recovery, and we don't realize that we're really in our own recovery process. Recovery is really powerful. I know it has been for me, and I've had the opportunity, Shreed, over the years to see recovery just have the greatest impact on so many people and families and communities, and it's just beautiful what recovery offers folks. So National Recovery Month actually started in 1989, and it was launched by SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration. But it was originally called Treatment Works Month
Mm.
to honor those of us that might work in addiction, addiction professionals, and treatment successes. But treatment's not recovery. Recovery's not treatment. People find themselves in recovery without any treatment experience, and people may go to a lot of treatment and never find themselves into a recovery space.
Can you share why that is, Henry? And I'd hate to cut you off, but I think for people who are not a part of this world, who are joining us and, may have happened upon our space because of losses, because of family members that did not complete a treatment episode, or who may have suffered from an overdose or a fatal overdose. Like, can you share a little bit about that? Because I think there's a large missing gap there.
Well, so within, so without, so above, so below, the law of correspondence. And culturally, recovery has also evolved. Remember, in 1989, we called Recovery Month, Treatment Works Month, and it was for professionals. It's more than that, right? And so in 1998, it actually was renamed National Alcohol and Drug Addiction Recovery Month. That's a long name. And
Right.
they chose that name to make it more broad,
Okay.
and to really move away from more emphasis on treatment, and to really see treatment and recovery as two very beneficial things for folks that might have a mental health disorder, a substance use disorder. And then in 2011, it became National Recovery Month. So again, we went from Treatment Works, we went from National Alcohol Drug Addiction Recovery Month to National Recovery Month. And I think that speaks to the acceptance and the destigmatization that has happened over the last 30, 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if there will be another iteration of National Recovery Month, if it'll take on a new name sometime, in the future. But I certainly think right now it is very reflective of where we are at um, and looking at recovery, right? National Recovery Month. So happy National Recovery Month to everybody out there. Recovery, it doesn't just change lives. Um, Recovery is great for taxpayers. It's great for our economy. It's great um, for decreasing hospital visits, and just so there's so many benefits that recovery has to offer. It's not just a cliche idea or concept that we've been doing this we as in the U.S. and that we have data to support why recovery may actually be more effective in all of these areas than maybe treatment.
Absolutely.
So it's tough too because like we all get to define our own individual recovery journeys,
Hmm.
you know, and not that long ago. Again, it was treatment works, right? And this was for professionals, and we're having more and more professionals that are getting into some of these spaces in recovery and in addiction treatment. More professionals are not in recovery. They
Yeah.
may not even struggle with an alcohol or a substance use disorder, right? And I think that's pretty incredible,
Hmm.
But I also think our licensing boards, I think that all of these third party governing bodies also in this time need to up their game to make sure that we have qualified, skillful, and trained clinicians working in any of these spaces at all levels of roles that these different organizations, institutions may um, employ or involve. So, um, this year, the theme of National Recovery Month is every person, every family, every community.
Yeah.
Every. Not those that are abstinent, not those that haven't been to treatment. What's going on, Odell, sir? One of our allies and supporters. I missed what he just said. What did Odell?
He said connection, not conversion.
Yes, yes. Attraction, not promotion.
Right.
Right, and so that's the whole thing is we're not here to convert people to a certain way of living. We're recovery really meets people where they're at.
Yeah. And
You
I
know,
I love that we're having the conversation because so many folks have been trying to separate and pull and pick apart, right? A lot of conversations, a lot of people I know personally have been exploring the language of recovery for themselves. They're like, I don't necessarily feel like I have a problem per se, but I have changed the way that I use certain substances. I have discovered that I don't like the way that I feel when I use this one substance. What can I say about that? And so I think that we're in another, what is this revolution, right? Of this, I think we just all, every generation, luckily we don't have that long ass name anymore to say, because I can't see how that rolls off the tongue um, nicely. But we are in like a renaissance of this shift, not just with harm reduction, but like you said, to your point, there's people involved and engaged in doing this work that don't have this personal experience of lived experience engaging in substances in the way that how you and I came into this field, where that was primarily who dominated the field with certification before we got licensure status. It was, I always say, I was trained by the original old school 12-step way of doing this program. And our language was like, you go out there and use again, you're going to die. Like it was just very clear cut. And um, Mujahid, God rest his soul, boy, was one of the main characters in my life who had this very, what is that word? His approach was, I can't think of a word to describe it, but it was just focused on this one way, which worked for him. But I think it's important that, especially as we're bringing younger people into this space who still have a lot more life ahead of them, but have started a recovery journey at 15 and 16 and 17, abstaining completely away from things, not recognizing that life still hasn't given them all these experiences that we have had, the opportunity to live through. So it's this idea of why not make it inclusive so other people can feel it. So my recovery journey is not centered around substances, but I have a recovery journey. And so when recovery month comes, I think about what I am in a healing and transformative part of my life in, and what recovery means to me, what it means about, when we think about what means. I used to do a demonstration in clinical practice, especially in a residential program. And we would unpack recovery because a lot of people would be like, well, can I just use my, tech as a sponsor or someone to guide me through the 12-step program? And I'm like, you know, think about it like this. You're in a hospital and you go through surgery. Does your doctor, do they also go with you when you're going to the rehabilitation place and learning to walk if you lost mobility in your legs? Is it the doctor showing you, or is there someone else, right, along that pathway of your healing?
Yeah.
And we would unpack it like that. And when it came to recovery, it was really identifying what are those rooted beliefs, because we always say there's a root cause. Well, if we believe in that, then we're actually not talking about the substance anymore. We're talking about your belief systems. We're talking about what you think about yourself, how you feel about what harm means to yourself, how you're treating yourself, how you're treating others. That don't sound like substances.
Right.
So now we're challenging people to really go inside. And I think right now the renaissance in the treatment landscape and in the substance use disorder field, the language changes. My goodness, Henry, our languages have, well, you and I are in the same boat. Our language changed. We were there when people identified themselves, and you being a person with lived experience, where we challenge people now with, I'm an addict. I'm addicted. I'm an alcoholic. We challenge, and we're in that renaissance. So I think it makes sense to not just change a name now of a time period that we celebrate, we uplift, we recognize, we lament, we sit with people. It's also time to take it a step deeper and redefine. So one of the words that I was thinking of adding, sometimes it can feel like a toxic positivity. I know with some of my circles and Black women, we hear people say Black women are always resilient. So I understand when you hear resilience, you're like, I'm sick of that shit. I don't want nobody to tell me I'm resilient anymore because I'm living in survival mode all the time. We don't want to be resilient. When we say resilience here, and what I think about when I'm being resilient, it's honestly thinking more about, some of my former clients come to mind, and being able to find the strength that's embedded deep inside of what they've lived through. So it's not necessarily saying, I'm glad you struggled, Henry. I'm so glad you had a struggle and that you had to survive and you were in a survival mode for that amount of time that you were in active use and in chaotic behavior. Is more like, let's pull out some of those parts that are a result of why you're here today. Wow. There was some not just character flaws and deficits. There are some very much positive qualities, right?
Yeah. And for anybody, tuning in, we're talking about recovery. This is National Recovery Month. And Shrita just brought up this other word, this concept, resilience. And for those of you that may not necessarily know about
Mm,
recovery, or if you're in recovery, if you need recovery, or maybe you absolutely claim and identify with somebody in recovery, it's all good. There's a framework I think that can be helpful. It's called CHIME, 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 and it really just breaks down, I think, the basic fundamental elements of recovery. Because
mm,
again, recovery is very different for each person, right?
mm-hmm,
Everyone, everywhere, every community. But there are some similar themes across different people's recovery stories. And so, CHIME, this acronym, it really helps us understand recovery elements really simply. And so, it's connectedness,
mm,
hope and optimism, identity, meaning and purpose, and empowerment.
mm.
And I think about my journey in recovery. I think about other people's street. I think about your journey, and that these are some of the themes, some of the elements that are pretty consistent across different recovery stories. So it doesn't matter where or how you're connected. It doesn't matter if you go to 12-step meetings or if you find connection from your faith community. But what is important is as we're moving in this process of recovery that we are finding ourselves being connected to other people, other communities, other organizations, so on and so forth. But
Say
then,
that again, Henry.
yeah,
Chime is connected. Hope. I'm gonna put it in the chat.
connectedness, hope, and optimism, identity, meaning and purpose, and empowerment.
Okay.
And that really any recovery process will, I think, have most or all of those elements in it.
That's dope. Just
And
looking.
this recovery, it means to recover. It means to basically go back to the way things were before some injury. And that may not necessarily be the case for most of us. I know I don't want to go back to
No.
what it was like, before. But there's this idea that you brought up, resiliency, recovery versus resiliency, or recovery and resiliency. And resiliency is the capacity to adapt, to withstand, to bounce back from adversity, not to like return to a baseline, but to, excuse me, but to maintain or even thrive under
Mm,
stress. So, what I notice in myself and in other folks who are openly in some process of recovery, one of the first qualities that I experience is this resiliency. Bouncing back um, amid adversity,
yeah.
and like you said, like it's a strength.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of played out. We talk about it, a lot. Resiliency, but it's an incredible strength.
It is.
Because like we all possess any number of opposites,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, like I can hold myself down under the water, gasping for air. I can do that. I have, times in my life where I've done that. I can also be resilient. I can overcome. I can be steadfast. So sometimes finding the shadow way, or finding the negative way, or finding the like you said, that some of the language is defect, it actually shows us the other side of the mirror, that it's not just a defect that we have, that we have a whole um, life experience of assets.
Mm,
And sometimes what we need is other people to help us see those things in ourselves before we can see it.
yes. Yeah. I I think that, to be really fair and to think about people who really get into fields for helping. So really looking at our healthcare systems, right? I know I usually call them our systems of, continued unhealthiness. Like it's not really a healthcare system. But I believe the idea is that I want to find the problem so that we can fix it. And I think that's what it is. When I go to the doctor, they're like, what's going on with you today? Right? That's the start of the conversation is tell me a problem so that I can solve it. And I get that approach. But when we're looking at transforming and looking at true healing, the idea is tell me what makes you feel your best. What does your best look like? When you're at your best, what does that mean? Describing those things so we can get to that point again versus you got a pain under there. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about that focused pain. And I find, honestly, even with my own healthcare journey, right? When we're talking about being strong, you can bounce back, you can do that. I find that if I just focus on the problem, the thing, then I'm never going to truly address it where it goes away or it diminishes. For instance, my back pain. My back pain has been going on for over a year now. And a lot of people who follow me in my personal circles of love are very well aware of this back pain. And initially, everything was focused on the pain. Pain. We can get a shot to go right to that pain. We can do this for that pain. And once I went through a series of tests and discovered that there is nothing going on with the skeleton, so the foundation is fine, that this may be centered around other things that honestly may not have a lot to do with a physical ailment. And over these last 6 months in physical therapy, what I've discovered is that book, The Body Carries the Score, that's not just for people who've been in the military, you guys. It's us. I found that going in and doing these exercises that are alleviating, and don't get me wrong, it's been a slow process. Like we say, it's not a microwave, it's an oven. But I'm unpacking where this pain really is coming from. And what it comes down to is lack of movement. I've not been sedentary, a lot more sitting. So a lot of people see me standing. I'm at my standing desk. Kudos to my workplace for listening to my doctor's feedback, recommendation, and it's been helping. I've been moving a lot more. Not just water. A lot of people say just drink more water, not just water, but also my thoughts, my mental health. If I'm tired a lot and I'm complaining about it, do we not think it's going to connect to the body? So when I'm sitting here, I'm like, yeah, you can tell me bounce back. You're going to get back to, well, instead of that, it's what does it feel like when you feel like you are at your 10, Sharita? What does it look like? What are you doing when you're there? And that's how my physical therapy sessions are. It starts off with, yeah, your pain may be at an 8. What's the goal? What's that number where it feels like it's not really there? Let's figure out how to get to that point. Not starting with the problem, and we've just been discovering sleep habits, eating habits, all the things. And as I'm changing those things, you guys, My mood is different. I'm showing up different at work. I'm realizing that my ADHD is connected to all of this. So, yes, I appreciate that pause on resiliency and us being able to acknowledge that a lot of times it's been thrown at us and it's gaslighting. Like I tell a lot of clinicians when I say self care, right? A lot of them go, because no one creates space in their workplace, right, for real self care. So we have to take back our language, though. Resilience, I feel the real resilience now. I feel it because I'm actively doing things to keep myself getting towards my 10. Am I always at a 10? Absolutely not. That's perfection. But am I always striving to feel better, less in pain? Well, what am I doing differently? I'm journaling, I'm doing these things. So I think just that being able to take ownership back of words. We do a lot of canceling. Our culture of canceling over the last 10 years has grown, and it's grown to the point where it's insane. You can't say certain things, you can't do certain things. We cancel people, we cancel words, we cancel language. Language is powerful. It's ours. We own it. So I today I know what it feels like to truly be resilient and strong and to show up that way. And I know we're kind of just jumping around, Henry, because I'm really excited about this recovery month. And I think, as we move through the month and we bring our next episode in, I think I'm just on fire because there's so much conversation around it, especially when we're talking about how it fits into our systems, right? Our systems are also starting to be a part of. You got the AG's office who's got a symposium coming up. You got the governor who's about to bring on new Kentucky Board of Alcohol and Drug Counselor members this month. You got yes, Sharita is going to be a new board member for the Kentucky Board of Alcohol and Drug Counselors. Um, you got so many entities coming in. I think we should spend a few minutes unpacking the differences with our language for our people in those systems, like clean time, the criminalization around this, our culture embracing recovery. Because does recovery fit into our way of describing recovery? Does it fit into the grand scheme of things that we're seeing right now, especially when we're considering the old ways of treatment, the old ways of how we were doing things, and our systems in the criminalization aspect? Clean and dirty. What was your urine drug screen, Henry? Was it dirty or was it clean?
Send it to the lab, baby.
Language, right? I didn't realize how unfitting it is when we have a recovery positive. We use Chime to really move recovery through our communities and through the people we engage with. I didn't realize how hard it is to hear clean and dirty until I'm on the other side, and it's changed completely in my life not to use that language anymore. And I hear it, and I'm like, is it clean or dirty? You know, the idea that we've made that fit, and it goes completely opposite to the healing aspect. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, I go to the doctor to just get like a routine annual, physical. And part of that is they're going to get some lab work and they might get a urine specimen. And then, a couple weeks go by and they say, Mr. Lucas, your lab results came back and you are healthy. You have nothing to worry about,
Hmm.
but you got a dirty urine. I'm thinking, well, isn't all urine dirty?
Right.
No, they're not going to say that.
No.
You go to the hospital because you're in a car wreck and they're going to get a urine sample. they're not going to, the nurse ain't going to come into your room and say, yo, you actually good on this because you're clean. You know, doesn't happen. The only place that this happens, it's in the treatment space.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about, well, why is it in the treatment space? Because clean and dirty is it's a new concept over the last 20 or 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's because of not just the criminalization aspect, but also how closely tied addiction treatment and the criminal aspect, the moral aspect,
Yeah.
right? And how treatment and we're kind of getting away from it, but how treatment a lot of times was mostly for folks that were mandated,
Mm-hmm.
so clean or dirty. And I think though we do that culturally, like we do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Black
Mm-hmm.
or white, which is part of that, part of that programming,
Mm-hmm.
right? Why are if you see a picture of an angel, what color are they usually wearing?
White.
Why don't they wear black?
Right.
But when you see the devil, or when you see a demon depicted somewhere, what generally is
Dark.
dark?
Gray or black. Just very dark.
Yeah. And like magic is magic, but what do we call voodoo?
Black magic.
Black magic.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So again, we have a long history of doing that, of subtly and not so subtly using words to demean,
Mm-hmm.
dismiss, and divide people.
Yeah.
People from being people. Remember, this is National Recovery Month if you're tuning in, and recovery is for everybody, everywhere, in every community.
Yes.
If that's true, then we have to continue doing a better job of being more inclusive, as in particularly how divisive a lot of our language can even be.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like this idea of today's topic, recovery versus resiliency. Like I see it, recovery and resiliency, that what a powerful force to have recovery and have resiliency together.
Mm-hmm.
They're not exclusive of one another. You know, they need one another. They complement one another, and they're a powerful force when you can add recovery and resiliency together and
Right.
own it.
And I like that.
And own it, because resiliency, I'm resilient. I don't always act like it. I'm resilient. I may not always feel like I make it through the best way that I can make it through, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm resilient. I've been through hard things. I will continue to go through hard things when they show up, but it doesn't mean I feel good about it,
Right.
you know? Like we talked about on the phone yesterday about integrity. I
Mm.
can be resilient, but I don't have to feel good about it. I can be a person of integrity, but I don't have to feel good about it.
Right.
But a clear conscience is the softest pillow.
Ooh.
So knowing that when I speak about my resilience, just know that I've been through some stuff, my own stuff, maybe similar, maybe worse, maybe not compared to what you've experienced. But we all deserve this opportunity to really find our way in recovery.
Yeah.
Because if we're honest, I might not use drugs or alcohol, but I got something. I got something that is interfering with me
Mhm.
returning to my baseline.
Yes. I
It
love that
it
baseline.
It might be codependency. It might be my hunger for money. It
Hmm.
might be my own busyness. It could be my anxiety. We
Yeah.
all have a place in the room of recovery. Everybody is welcome, regardless of their experience.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about here today.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's listening to you talk. I enjoy when you really get in the groove of talking about recovery. Make me think about so many different things, and usually it's a thought. And now I'm ready to challenge a system. As I watch, it's a lot of people perform during this time too, and I think about how I named systems that are creating spaces during this time of the year. Similarly to Black History Month, when Black History Month, you all of a sudden you see all the blackness. Everybody's got something black on their pages. There's always a quote, and Dr. Martin Luther King is usually the winner. That's the only one they know how to quote. And then I sit back and I think about how we have leaders in our government spaces who make such a strong effort to make make it make sense that their funds being allocated to increase law enforcement presence, their funds being allocated to the carceral system's growing space need as a way to address the opioid epidemic. We are going to support by putting millions of dollars in these spaces to ensure that law enforcement can be more present and that we lock down because we want to help people. I'm like, ooh, those are two totally different. So this term, criminalized healing, I think about the communities that jump out first, especially when we're looking at like Memorial Day and Labor Day, and we're talking about veterans and Veterans Day. And I think about veterans, I think about communities of color. And I'm like, there's so many different messages coming at us that may have some similar language, but it's coming criminalized. A perfect example is one of our partners, Prevention Point in Philly in Pennsylvania, was talking to me about their court, recovery court there. And I asked the question, it came about because I asked the question about what's happening with their houseless community because of the laws that have changed, and everyone has a different bill that is under. For us in the state of Kentucky, is House Bill 5, where there's criminalization of houseless community members by putting fines on folks who are doing illegal encamping, so sleeping on the street. And they said, well, we don't, they're not arresting folks. And I said, well, what's the plan? What are they doing? What's the law enforcement? And they said, well, when they're approached and they're out there, they're offered an opportunity to go to court, and they won't get arrested, they won't get time, but they have to go into treatment. And I was like, whoa. So, but it's like a mask. It's under the mask of, no, we are supporting treatment and recovery and healing forced.
But what happens when they relapse in recovery court,
Right.
which doesn't make any sense to have those two words together, right?
Mhm. Right.
What happens when they relapse and they're in recovery court and they've already been to treatment once or twice? they almost always end
Mhm.
up in jail.
Yep. Yep.
So, what a brilliant way to disguise something as being helpful, but that is still a continued pipeline into our prison system.
That's it.
And in Kentucky, we have this is an offshoot, but it's kind of similar. In Kentucky, we have these recovery ready communities.
I asked what is, I've seen them, but I'm like, what does that really mean?
So it's a certification program. It's designed to provide a quality measure of a city or county's substance use disorder recovery efforts. The program offers local officials, recovery advocates, and concerned citizens the opportunity to evaluate their community's current substance use disorder treatment programs and interventions in a framework that is designed to maximize positive public health outcomes among Kentuckians suffering from substance use disorder.
Hmm.
I don't hear for a recovery ready community, I don't hear anything about recovery in this recovery ready, right? So, but recovery doesn't need to be ready. It's ready on its own.
Right.
Like,
Right.
what are we getting ready for? The war on drugs?
That's what it is.
Um, but let me go back, and I want to say that I'm grateful for Kentucky, and
Mhm.
we are deeply flawed in a lot of ways, and there are a lot of us that are trying to inch this thing forward because recovery matters. Recovery is important. Everybody, everywhere, in every community deserves recovery. Not because your community has received a certification. It's not that you deserve recovery in your community because your community has this certification as a recovery ready community.
Mhm.
It's that you and me, we all deserve recovery because it is one of our most basic rights to be able to experience an unbounded life,
Mhm.
right? To be able to like live our lives in how we decide to live.
And
And
it's
so I think though, one of the things that has to continue to happen is we have to see through these. I don't even know what you would call it.
performance.
Performance.
And
Well, it's performance, but also I think there's some legitimacy behind it, but the buck's going to stop somewhere, right? It is important, but who is a part of the conversations? Here we go again. Who's a part of these conversations? When we
that is
talk
the
about
question.
when we talk about recovery court, mental health court, veterans court, drug court,
Mhm.
we talk about recovery ready, communities. It feels good, but feel good don't change shit,
It don't.
right? So I think if we're going to support folks in recovery, what's the smile about? Is it because I'm becoming unhinged?
Well, I'm feeling unhinged with you, and I'm
Good.
like, we probably should have started this segment with that. And this is gonna step on toes, Henry, because there's a lot of people who are championing that, and they don't even realize the bias and stigma and shame that they're unintentionally bringing up. Because when you think about it, I don't. Some people don't live in a recovery ready community. So does that say to them that you aren't worthy? What does that message send to someone when you say, well, this space over here, we are recovery ready? What does that mean? Because honestly, for a person who has lacks the knowledge of the work that we do, if I was just to look and I'd be like, well, does that mean that in the county I went into, they had no, bowling alley, no movie theater, they had no activity space, but they had several liquor stores. They were still there when the recovery ready community was announced. And I'm like, what does that mean? What does it really mean? Like you said, it sounds good, it sounds nice. And the fact that we get on stages and we announce that we have new recovery ready communities out here, and people continue to die, people are continuing to feel the pressures and the hardships and the lack of access to resources. They're still experiencing this, but you're ready to announce such a big idea.
You are a recovery community ready. You are a recovery ready community, but you only have one delivery method
Right.
of treatment.
Yes. Mm.
You know, let me give a quick shout out to the city that I live in, Bardstown, Kentucky. We are a recovery ready community. And I know a little bit about what it took for us to get there because I attended Nell Care, which is a nonprofit in
Mhm.
Nelson County. Nelson County Cares. Um, and the 30, 40 people that continue to show up every month for these meetings, and we have quite a bit of recovery and treatment options out
Mhm.
here in Nelson County, considering that we are still a rural part of Kentucky. In my organization, Barstown Health and Healing out here in Barstown, Nelson County, is part of the Recovery Ready uh, community. I went through and I saw who's involved, and there was our name right there. And what it means is if folks need consulting, if there needs to be some sort of help or information, dispersed, um, that my organization, and again, probably 2 dozen other organizations are on this list. So um, I want to acknowledge Recovery Month again. Happy Recovery Month to you and me. And let's celebrate and let's not forget either. Let's not
Yeah,
forget. But we are about out of time. We've
we
got a
are.
couple minutes left. I know that you warmed up now, sis.
I know. I'm like, listen, that was such a good, and I think we'll have more conversation. I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation. You guys, tune in to our next podcast. We have something new we're going to try. Um, we don't want you to miss out, but you're going to hear from some different voices around recovery. And it's going to be kind of a fast paced space that we're going to create. And we're finding unique voices. If you are interested in participating, we're creating a little Google Doc and asking people to fill them out. We want to get to know our guests a little bit more. It's been so cool having you guys on here, but we want to also shout you out. So we need a headshot. We need a little bio. We need to know what your interests are. We want to know more about you and be more intentional. Um, as we wrap up today, this conversation is not over. I know that people are having these conversations on the outside, continue to reach out to me, but we want you to go ahead and chat about it. You know, tag us and tell us your story. Tell us your recovery story. Tell us what's transformed for you and what it means to live and walk in recovery in your life. If you haven't figured that out, it's okay. Start today. Start figuring out what you want to do and what you want to be like. Okay. All right. I think we're going to head it out. We're healing in full color and full voice by any means. Right, Henry?
Bam.
Bam. Thank you all.
We'll see y'all next time. Thanks for joining us. Like, share, subscribe, please. Have a good
Yes.
day.